Rarely has mankind hesitated to eradicate the creatures that stand in the path of his conquest. And if we find intelligent species, ritual extirpation of undesirable invaders from another world, the rest must be destroyed. Is it possible that our dark past has repeated itself? Watch them and pray.
Greetings, ladies, gentlemen, government agents, those of you with the frightening knowledge of what wine pairs best with human flesh, and anyone who might be listening. This is Close Encounters of the Podcast Kind. I'm your host, Tasker, and we have Nick.
I'm an island boy. Yeah, I'm an island boy.
Wow, it's good to see you're so proud of your heritage.
Oh, man, dude, you see those, and I use this word very liberally, but you see those rappers that have been circulating on social media with the whack hair, and they're all like, they think they can rap, but it's just them talking in like fake Caribbean accents, and they just like, you can't hear a word. Oh, it's fucking awesome, man. They got like grills and stuff, you know?
Oh my God. That's like, so it's at a derivative of the SoundCloud rapper where it's like, they not only look like a Skittle, but they also they're just like talking in accents.
Right. And now here's the funny thing is they claim they're from the Caribbean. They say they're from Cuba, which is fine. I guess that's technically, but that doesn't mean you sound like this, you know? You're not an island boy. You know, for the last time I was in Cuba, they didn't sound like that. All right.
Yeah. Why were you in Cuba?
It was 1961. JFK was like, dude, we gotta go in there. I was like, are you sure about that? And I went in. So
there's some problems that need some very prompt solutions, and you're just the man for the job. Brilliant. Really quick, just because it's kind of hot on the presses right now. But what are your thoughts about the whole Alec Baldwin situation?
Okay. Do you want to know do you want me to be funny about it, or do you want me to be real about it?
The part that does not like blame the victims or anything like that.
Okay, then I'm gonna have to, and I know people are gonna get real fucking mad about this, but it's the truth. Alec Baldwin is a victim in this situation. It is not his job to check for debris in guns when using blanks. It is not his fucking job.
No, you're totally right. And more information just came out on the day of us recording this, which is the 25th, that he was demonstrating, like, you know, because they were discussing the scene, and there was a live round in it when there shouldn't have been. And so as he pulled out the gun, he didn't even I don't even think he actually pulled the trigger or something, but it discharged. Is that something that happens? A discharge when like you just pull the gun out and just fires?
If your gun was made in the 1700s, and yes, I've never heard of a gun just taking it out of the holster, it just kind of goes off. Something had to have made it go off.
Yeah, or maybe it had the safety on or something like that, and it was supposed to not fire, but it fired anyways.
Okay, if that's the case, like maybe he thought it was, and he did pull the trigger. Basically, there's two ways that a gun discharges. You pull the trigger, or it falls or gets hit in a very, very, very specific part of the back of the gun that makes it go off, but you have to hit it hard, and it has to be very peculiar. So somebody pulled a trigger, in my opinion. But I wasn't on the set, so I don't know. I'm just know from gun talk, but I don't know. I wasn't there. It could be a 1 in a million fluke where he just pulled it out and was like, maybe the gun was made in the 1700s. I don't know, because like they were. It's a Western that they were shooting, and they were using actual like old timey revolvers.
Right.
So I don't know.
But kind of the general consensus in that it was an accident. Like it was 100% an accident. Like. Then there was like some like conspiracy theory I heard on like 4chan that like it was an agent like sent over to like assassinate the oh god, I'm gonna fuck the name up.
It's a weird name. Yeah, it's a weird name.
Hanya Hutchins. But super fucking tragic. But like, you know, there's this conspiracy theory that it was actually an assassination where the assassin had actually planted a live gun instead of the fake gun. But then again, how was he supposed to know that Alec Baldwin was going to aim in her direction? So that's kind of debunked in its own. But like,
yeah, and what did she do? What did she do to anybody that's like, we got to kill this bitch? You know, I mean, okay, that was rude. We got to kill this lady. All right.
Oh yeah, she's done nothing but like good for the film industry and stuff. Yeah. Like no,
and I heard she was kind of up and coming as a DP. Like I heard she was like doing a good job, and she was starting to get some fucking movies under her belt. So this is very tragic.
Yeah, it's insanely
tragic.
It sucks.
And also, of course, we can't forget the director was shot, and he's good, but he was shot. Right. That sucks. That's never easy.
Right.
Been there like 9 times. Like I'm like 50 Cent, dude. I've been shot like 9 times. But
Beautiful. The South Park episode on that was hilarious, by the way. But, the reason we bring this up too is because just kind of in like similar to the Brandon Lee situation, this could be a modern conspiracy unfolding right before us, because first there's the shock, then there's the information, and then come the theories. So we just thought it would be like worth addressing. And plus, I mean, a horrible transition, but like, what better, like, it's just kind of related to, the subject we have today of people killing other people.
That's right, man. And you know what? Let's address the elephant in the room. Yes, today is our first episode ever of us doing something true crime related.
Yeah, this is because by the time you are listening to this, it should be Halloween. You should hopefully be listening to this on Halloween. If not, we'll find you.
We'll find you, and I will do what they call doing a Dahmer on you.
Which, listen to the episode, you'll know what that means.
Yeah, it's not as bad as it sounds. Now, one last thing I have to say before we get into horoscopes. The only conspiracy in this whole thing with Alec Baldwin and them getting shot is that the prop master was a lady. So let's move on and do horoscopes. You know what I mean?
Wonderful. Yeah, then we'll address why we're doing a true crime break of form, as some might say, or others might say, quote unquote, selling out to the popular masses.
Here's the deal, man. First of all, if you guys don't like this subject matter, you're a fucking liar. Okay, that's the first thing. And the second thing is, we thought it would be interesting to kind of see if you guys like the way that we present it, right? Because everybody and their sister at one point in their lives have covered Jeffrey Dahmer, but
right.
They all cover it differently. As long as you get the facts correct, you can kind of present it how you want to. So we wanted to do that as like a little bit of an experiment, and we thought it would be a good Halloween episode as well. Who better to cover on Halloween than fucking the Milwaukee cannibal himself? You know what I mean?
And I just remember like months ago on Discord, somebody had asked me if we were going to do any like true crime, and I was just like, no, fuck that. Like, we don't do true crime. Like, that's not in our niche, man. That's not our genre. And now
it is. Because
here we are.
Here's the thing, guys. When you have a very niche topic to talk about, sure, you can come up with subject matter, but it becomes increasingly difficult if you stay in one lane, There's only so many cryptids I can do a full episode on. There's only so many abduction cases that are worth talking about.
Right.
And of course we haven't gotten to big topics yet, but that's because we're saving them for special occasions like Bigfoot and all that stuff. So true crime is really going to help. First of all, I think you guys will like it. And second of all, it'll help us be able to get more, have an easier time deciding on subjects to talk about and research.
Yeah, because there's a lot of this information is a lot more accessible, because like we've had to go through some deep bowels of internet like guts to find like the really like niche stuff that we've been covering before, which is fun and cool. But also remember, Nick and I are back in school full time. Like we're doing like part-time stuff, and like it's getting increasingly more difficult to like, get things out in like a timely manner. And with this, it's something both Nick and I are very interested in. And are they aliens? No. But maybe they are. Who knows? We'll come up with whatever excuse we can. But like we said, this is just kind of a bit of an experiment. We'll see if you guys like it, and maybe we'll start doing a couple more every now and again.
Exactly. So if we get good reception on this series for Jeffrey Dahmer, then we will in the future do more true crime. We'll do bigger names. We'll even do ones you might not have heard of. We're going to try and dig around. So let's see how it goes. But hopefully you guys are in the mood for something spooky. You know what I mean?
Yeah. And if anyone just starts calling us posers and way to go, way to fucking copy, then we'll probably just keep doing serial killers exclusively.
And then we'll change the name of the podcast. It's going to be called Nick and Tasker's Serial Killer Cum Corner. That's what we're going to call
it. Nick and Tasker are coming to kill you. !
Coming to kill you. CUMMING.
NC-17. All right, let's do horoscope. Obviously, horoscopes. Let's look to the stars to get the vibe of this episode today and see how it's going to go. You want to start us off?
I will start us off today. Let's see. Miscommunication with a romantic partner could have you either writing or reading love poetry or a story of some kind. Yeah, okay. All right. What do they think? I'm fucking Robert Frost? They think I'm just gonna start like writing No, dude. Okay, I want you to, on a scale of 1 to 10, how likely is it that I'm gonna start writing poetry? 10 being very likely, 0, or let's say 1 being not happening.
10. You probably wrote poetry last night.
Yeah, but you weren't supposed to tell anybody about it.
Oh man, I'm just guessing, man. So I remember you also you wrote for what was it, some like video game articles online, didn't you?
I did. Yeah, I dipped my toes in writing, but I dip my toes in non-creative writing, informational writing, because I'm not a very, when it comes to like making fucking similes, I make similes like whatever, you guys get it. That was a joke, all right? For all you English majors out there, hopefully you enjoyed that joke.
Yeah, I'm sure they did.
All right. It's more important that you clear up the misunderstanding with, and also I stole that joke from Dennis Miller, so I can't take a credit.
Wow.
Whatever, fuck it, man. It's more important that you clear up the misunderstanding with the special person in your life. Cheer up. Don't let your insecurity get the better of you. All isn't as bad as it seems. The end of the day could bring a passionate reconciliation.
Yeah, man, you just gotta sit Kiwi down, look him right in his pug eyes, and tell him what you're actually feeling.
I will. I'm like, Kiwi, God damn it, man. Look, I know I've been yelling at you a lot lately, but you gotta stop begging me for food all the time. Drives me fucking batty.
Have you seen that new thing that's like kind of trending on TikTok with the noodle? He's like a 13-year-old pug who has some like syndrome. So some days his bones just don't work super well, or his like skeleton doesn't work, or muscles.
What?
So they do a thing of whether it's a bones day or not a bones day, where when he wakes up, if he can stand up or not. Yeah, have you not seen that?
Is that? Oh, dude, don't tell me they called him Noodle because when his bones don't work, he's like a noodle. That's fucked up.
But hey, the TikTok seemed to take very highly to him, and today is in fact a bones day, which means it's supposed to be a good day.
Oh, good for Noodle, man. I'm glad that he's not noodly. That's good.
Oh God. All right,
okay,
what are your stars?
Well, my stars are Sex is a 2 out of 5. Hustle is a 4 out of 5. Vibe is a 3 out of 5, and Success is a 2 out of 5. So it's all right. You know, like I could give or take the Sex. My Hustle has been pretty good today. I've gotten a lot of shit done for school. So
fuck yeah. No, same. I had to, because I got a lot of shit going on as well. So yeah, good shit.
Also, friendship section, Scorpio, just a heads up again.
Oh, nice. Good. Let's see. I have love is Leo, friendship is Capricorn, career is Taurus. All people I do not know.
Wow, so you're just kind of leaving me out just like that, huh? Just like that, dude?
Just gangbanging strangers now.
Good Lord. I'll see you at the glory hole then.
I won't see you there because I'll be the one behind the wall.
Oh, that's true. Oh, that's true, man. Okay, never mind.
It kind of defeats the purpose of a glory hole. Think about it.
Yeah, that's true. Dude, there was not that I've watched them, but there are videos out there where a guy will go to a glory hole and then it'll be a girl talking on the other end, but it's a trick because it's a dude sucking his dick.
and that's the thing, is most glory holes they don't even go that far. It'll just be straight a dude. That's the usual. Which is, hey, do what you got to do. But we're going to be talking in the next 2 episodes, especially next episode. There's going to be a lot of gay stuff. All right. Yeah. Now, it is not a problem. Yeah. In the past, I have said that it's a choice, and I have since learned that it is not. Well, especially because we know people that are definitely in the LGBTQ community, which we had significant backlash on once they listened to it. Yeah. That was a poor joke for me to make, but that's my favorite moment of like the shit you saying on the podcast coming to bite you in the ass with like my personal life. Yeah. Oh my God. So if that doesn't prove to you guys that like this is the part where it's like this is the part of the joke we tell you we're just joking. We don't mean most of the stuff we say on here. Amen. For the shock value, but yeah, it has come back to get us. I know I've gotten in trouble with my girlfriend for a couple things I said, and I try to keep it like together, I'm the one trying to but I got a little too comfortable. Yeah, it's all right, man. Look, I've said it before. It's been a while since I've said it, so I'll reiterate. We're all a little gay, all right? None of us are 100% straight. So if that doesn't tell you anything, I don't know what will. Yeah, this will be interesting when we get into it, and you'll see what we're talking about and why we're doing this preface. But I'll quickly blast through my horoscope so we can get exactly to that. So for me, it says a new sort of bond may form with someone you consider a friend. Maybe you discover a mutual interest or suddenly see your friend in a new light. This can be beautiful. But before you make any commitment, make an effort to get to know the person a little bit better. Your image of him or her may be clouded by idealism. You might not see this person objectively.
Interesting. Okay, so have you met any new friends lately that you think are just the bee's knees?
No. I mean, maybe it's a new streamer I've started watching. Maybe.
Have you been looking at him objectively or subjectively?
I look at him as the person who makes me laugh when I'm bored.
Okay, I say it's right smack dab in the middle. Okay, how about me, dude? Do you look at me objectively or subjectively? Let's get deep for a second.
What would that mean, looking at you subjectively?
Do you look at me in a peripheral, like, do you look at me in the emotions and the support that I might give you, or do you look at my behaviors and the way that I act and like my tendencies?
Oh man, I don't know. I never really thought that deep. I mean, I guess.
Okay, don't think too much about it because I don't want you to leave me. All right?
Yeah. That's right. Actually, you can't see him, but the marriage counselor is right behind us and he's been pushing us to do this episode.
This is an exercise we have to do.
You guys should really do a true crime episode. I think it would really help your relationship.
Yeah, you won't yell at each other as much.
I think all the talk of Hela Greys and reptilians, I think it's just really a negative impact on your fucking romantic life.
It's making Tasker frustrated, and Nick, it's perpetuating your psychosis. So let's not do that.
So maybe it's because we decided to finally get a marriage counselor to help us through the hard times. Good God. Well, sex is a 3 out of 5, hustle's a 3 out of 5, vibes a 3 out of 5, and success is a 3 out of 5. A perfect 3-3-3-3.
Well, goddamn, you're nice and average today. I like that.
Yep, I'm okay with that. I am okay with that.
All right, people. Well, guess what? This is our special Halloween episode, and like we said, we decided to do for this special spooky event. We're unveiling a new subject matter to you all. Like Tasker has said it in the past. You guys have kind of asked if we're going to be doing true crime, and here it is. This is us attempting true crime. All right. Mm-hmm. And what better way to kick off our coverage of true crime and serial killers than with the big man himself, Jeffrey Dahmer, aka the Milwaukee Cannibal.
Yeah, I believe widely considered to be one of the most documented serial killers of all time.
I'd say he's so prolific, right behind Ted Bundy. I think Ted Bundy's like everybody's favorite because he was kind of handsome.
Yeah.
Not saying that Jeffrey wasn't. And also I'm not going to start this episode off by fantasizing about like serial killers and stuff. Just looking at their qualities, their physical qualities. But yes, very prolific. Probably one of the most prolific in the world.
Yeah. Because my girlfriend came from Wisconsin. Now, of course, Jeffrey Dahmer, the Milwaukee Cannibal. Milwaukee is definitely in Wisconsin, and it was I was kind of like talking to her about him, and like she like when I brought up like where like around like where he lived and stuff like that, like she knows like the area where like all that shit happened and stuff, and it's pretty fucking eerie.
Yeah, that's crazy, man. It's so crazy.
Oh yeah, well it's kind of like me living in California, driving on like the 5 or the 405, knowing the fucking what's his name, the Night Walker, Night Prowler.
Oh, the night, yeah. Richard Ramirez, he used to drive up and down that shits, man.
Dude, my mom was like, cause she lived in like LA during that time, and it was just like, oh yeah, we all fucking like locked all of our windows. Everyone was terrified. Like, it's weird when you drive through these like real places and are like, oh yeah, that's right. 40 years ago, like if I lived in this area, I'd be worried about some random dude coming in and fucking stabbing my eyes out or something.
Yeah, man. And that's somebody that we gotta cover in the future because he's whackety schmackety, dude. I don't want to say I love him.
Yeah, I was gonna say,
weird.
It's hard for me to say he's a personal favorite between the two of us because that's a very weird statement. But
I feel like true crime aficionados will understand what we're trying to convey. We're not
Right.
saying that we think that they're like they should run for president. We're saying that, like, you know, as far as serial killers go, they're the most interesting. But it's just our way of saying that they're interesting.
Yeah, and if you're curious about our credentials, we did go to the Museum of Death before it closed down.
Yes, multiple times. We've been there a couple times, right? So, you know, we've been through the tours. We've read articles. I've read books.
We've been to goth nightclubs.
Yeah, I've been to goth nightclubs, dog. I've been to Sinister in LA. Don't you fucking...
Yeah. That place is great. I hope they're still open.
I hope so too, man. Remember the BDSM upstairs?
That was fun. That was really fun.
Awesome. That was awesome.
And those guys were so talented, though. Like, I'm not gonna lie, it wasn't even like a sexual thrill. I was just like, the shit these dudes can do with ropes. Okay, well, let's not get into that.
Yeah, Jesus. I mean, I was sexually aroused, but
I was just impressed. That's skill, and like how they did it with like a total straight face, like without breaking like kayfabe and stuff. Like that's hard, man. That's a tough job.
Yeah, man. Somebody's got to whip them submissives, though. You know.
That's how the interaction works.
All right, so today's episode will cover Jeffrey's early life and upbringing, along with his transition into committing murder. Part 2 next week, or the week after, depending on how things go for us. You'll hear later. We'll cover the rest of this his documented crimes and the aftermath. So, without further delay, put on your rubber gloves, buy some big empty barrels to keep certain things in, and talk like this, buddy. All right. So, because we're going straight to Wisconsin today.
Right. A funny thing, though, too, before we get into this is we do have a friend who does kind of look like Jeffrey Dahmer.
Yeah.
And we've been making fun of him for that for a while, to the point where I don't ever think he really even got offended by it. But he's also a very clean, neat person. So, like, it just kind of makes sense. So he just sort of embraced it. And there's that point of like, well, let's just say we're glad that serial killers generally do not kill those that are close to them unless they want to get caught.
Right. Because, dude, I don't know about him, man. Like, he knows we don't know about him. He knows that we think that he might kill people. I've never looked under his bed. I don't know what's under there.
Totally. There's no point. It's too clean. There's just like, for all we know, it could be like he's like the reincarnation in a bad way, or the reincarnation in like he got to like Dahmer got to come back and like try again as like a good person, like Majin Buu.
Sure, man. Whatever the fuck that means.
Anybody who knows would know that yeah.
It's an anime thing, isn't it?
It's a fucking great comparison. I feel like I'm being underrated right now.
Well, good. Well, look at the company you're in right now, man. Of course, I'm not going to know what Majin Blue is, dude.
Whatever. All right, let's talk about the real killer.
All right, everybody. So let's begin by taking a look at Jeffrey's childhood all the way through his adolescence. So Dahmer was born May 21st, 1960, to his father, Lionel Herbert, and mother, Joyce Annette. Look at those two beautiful names.
Lionel. That's quite the name. That would get you bullied today, but back then I'm sure it was awesome.
And given his profession, that would help him. That would probably help with the bullying as well. Because at the time of Jeffrey's birth, Lionel was a chemistry student at, and I believe this is pronounced Marquette.
Yeah.
Marquette University in Milwaukee, working on his PhD, or not yet. He was working on his bachelor's. And Joyce was a teletype machine instructor, basically one of those people who would you'd call, and if I read it correctly, it's like one of those people back in the day where you'd call an operator and then they would connect you to like, and they'd move the thingies into the, I don't know, dude. I wasn't born in the fucking 60s. I don't know. Yeah,
no, totally. Because that's how it worked. Like you would need it. You had to go to like a call center for everything. And it was funny because my professor who was teaching me like code and like shit said back in the day, like he found out like you could like download basically he was like the OG pirating video games to your computer. But the thing was, it was over the phone line and stuff. And I think this was like just after like operators weren't around. They finally got like switches or whatever the fuck. and not the Nintendo Switch. I mean, like the machine Switch.
Oh,
And
good. I'm glad you clarified. I didn't know the Switch came out like 3 years ago.
No, this is like in like the fucking like 60s or whatever. But so he would download games for free, but of course didn't want to tell his mom. But at any point, if his mom like had to make a call, it would cancel the download. And it was like, imagine downloading fucking like Pong over a telephone wire. It took like 6 hours. So you just kind of had to hope that nobody picked up the phone. But anyway, it's just my little fun fact.
So yeah, that's basically what Joyce did. She had to work that operator booth, and probably, a lot of people did that back then. It was like an up and coming business, and it was a good job.
Yeah.
So Dahmer's infancy is fairly up for debate as far as how he was cared for, right?
Mm-hmm.
Some sources out there say that he had a normal infancy and was interacted with in a loving way by both Lionel and Joyce, in a way that, you would expect normal parents to behave with their children.
Yeah, not amazing, but not horrible. They didn't abuse him, is what it sounds like they're saying.
Right. I would say, the way that this source is saying is, it's saying that it was like good for 60s standards. You know what I mean?
Oh, that's a good point.
Not like 2021 standards where you're like, oh, my baby. Oh, no, I don't know. Not none of that shit. It's like, you pay a little bit of attention to your kid. You make sure that they're fed and you don't hit them too much. You know what I mean? That's kind of what we're talking about.
Right.
But other sources, however, say that he was not given the attention he needed for early socialization as a baby. Because as we all know, early infant socialization is pretty important to how you turn out later in life. I mean, it's not a deciding factor, but it fucking helps. You know what I mean?
It's, if you're socializing really, really young, that's a good sign. That's pretty typical. And the funny thing about it is, like, I think people are scared of like, oh, like, is my baby being socialized enough? No, that's something that naturally will happen. Most children will socialize fairly easily because that's how you learn. But when they don't socialize very well, or if you prevent them, like make an active effort to keep them from playing with other kids and stuff like that, like, yeah, that could cause some trouble.
Right. But especially at an infant age, when they don't have like friends to play with and the only socialization they get is from their caregivers, that's super crucial, even for like stuff like language development, things that we don't think about. So that's also something to think about as we move on. There's a lot of, as I talk about his background, there is a lot of foreshadowing. Okay. And so just keep that in mind as we go through.
Got you.
Now, whether one or the other is true, one thing was certain. His mother had psychological issues, okay? Joyce was known to be a tumultuous figure. That's me putting it nicely. A tumultuous figure in the family and around the neighborhood. She was described as being argumentative with Lionel and their neighbors, and she had a need for attention and other people's pity, and was just kind of generally tense and always anxious. So she had a lot of psychological issues early on in his infancy.
And also, too, this is the 60s, so it could have been like an actual condition that just got completely written off because nobody gave a fuck back then.
Absolutely. Now, despite this, it is a general consensus that Jeffrey was never physically abused by his parents. So that is something that we can say for sure. We know. So what we're more curious about is, as far as the upbringing was he given attention or was he neglected attention wise? But we at least know he wasn't physically abused.
Right, because emotional abuse can be equally damaging, but like this is kind of a point up for conjecture, and also the fact like in that we don't know how much drugs they were on, or like because back then it was like okay to be just like blackout drunk like whenever you were at home and stuff at all times.
Right, and as we will learn as the story progresses, Joyce was always on something. So
I see.
She had a lot of issues. She could have been easily diagnosed with like a couple different things like depression, anxiety, and substance abuse. So
got you. Which all stuff that we looked over, people glossed over back in the 60s.
Right, because they're like, oh, what, you don't have a scotch with breakfast,
Oh, yeah. Well, basically, if you're like, if you were not like straight up like Asperger's, like autism, like something very clearly, visibly like What's that called? I can't think of the name right now. Where there's a very distinct look for it.
Fetal alcohol syndrome.
That no, not that. It's not autism. It's when you're
Down syndrome.
Down syndrome. Right.
Oh wait, you couldn't remember the name of the exact disorder that I make fun of all the time?
I know. That's what weirded me out.
That's weird, man.
It's like, you ever have that happen? You just forget the most basic things every now and again.
Yeah. No, dude, I never forget Down syndrome.
Yeah. But yeah, my point being in that unless you had a very physical and very clear behavioral, like, outlier, everyone's just like, you're fine. Like, dude, you're just a woman. Like, you're just like crazy. And that was her diagnosis, I'm sure.
Yes, it still is.
Wow.
Rude. All right. Now, a few years passed and some new changes had occurred in the Dahmer household. The Dahmers moved to Iowa so that Lionel could begin his PhD in chemistry at Iowa State University. So they moved out of Wisconsin.
Oh.
Jeffrey entered his early childhood and was described as being a, quote, happy and energetic, quote, child throughout these years, despite the possible lack of early attention and affection. So, either he wasn't given a lot of attention and it didn't affect him in a way that it normally would, or that it would predominantly, or they did give him the attention and the other is true. So again, up for debate, but at least he was like a pretty happy child.
Yeah. So basically normal.
He had a normal early childhood, which is important.
Yeah. Because a lot of people seem to think like, with spree killers, serial killers, murderers and stuff like that, that all of them have this. It's like, it's like the starving artist myth, where it's like everybody thinks in order to create good art, you have to be a depressed, horrible person with a like fucked up past. But like, it's, with serial killers, like they don't necessarily need to have a terrible upbringing to be a serial killer. Like, it's a mental illness,
Exactly. And I'm really glad you brought that up. Let me flex for a second. All right.
Oh, no.
So there's something called the Diathesis stress model. Okay. And essentially what this means is that people who have predispositions genetically to certain disorders. Okay.
Yeah.
Let's use substance abuse for like alcoholism, for an example. So somebody might be genetically predisposed.
Yeah. Well, it's like saying like addiction runs in blank family,
Right. Now, the Diathesis stress model says that everybody has different stress thresholds. And these basically what happens are these genes for any kind of disorder are laying dormant, right? Until a certain amount of stress or environmental changes happens to where that gene is activated. So that being said, yes, they could have completely normal childhoods, but they could be predisposed to disorders. Like his mom obviously had issues, and he could have genes for the same issues, and he could have had a normal childhood, but then all of a sudden some shit happens, which we'll talk about, and boom, now he has those disorders as well. So he doesn't have to be physically abused to become a serial killer. Right.
And just in really brief, before we get back to it, but it's like, and also too, sometimes it's about brain development and just certain parts of your brain that are in charge of like empathy or having your conscience just never develops on just a pure fluke, like of just nothing. Nobody did anything. Nobody's head got hit. It's just shit just didn't develop right.
Right. Frontal lobe has a lot to do with that. So there could be issues with the frontal lobe, both developmentally or injury, which is in some serial killers is the case.
Yeah.
Like Richard Ramirez, he had we'll get into him when we get into him, but he's interesting.
Yeah.
All right. So he was basically a happy child, and he was also very fond of animals in this period of his life. He loved rabbits, and he and his father once nursed a baby bird back to health who would have otherwise died without their help.
Oh.
And this becomes important later. Okay, so remember this. Remember that.
Put a bookmark here.
Now, around the same time, Lionel's PhD chemistry studies were ramping up. And of course, as you could imagine, getting a PhD in something like chemistry kept him away from home for extended periods of time. He was out in the field. He was out in laboratories, getting work under his belt, and probably working on a thesis. It was fucking crazy. So Jeffrey, he would obviously miss his father. But when Lionel was at home and he wanted to spend time with him, Joyce's constant need for attention and such directed all of Lionel's priority onto her. And this is where the confirmed lack of attention in Jeffrey's life really began. So early childhood, we're not sure, but at this point in his life, there was definitely a lack of attention, both due to his mother's mental illnesses and because Lionel would always just pay attention to her because she was fucking crazy.
Yeah, but that doesn't sound like enough that would cause somebody to decide, you know what? I want to end humans' lives.
Yes, it's a sticky soup of multiple things going into one that creates a serial killer. This is just
Right.
one little thing that happened at a pretty important part of his child development, I'd say.
Yeah.
But a minor thing, but it stacks up.
Yeah. So it was like he was neglected attention, but like that's about the worst of it. I'm not saying that that's like, oh, like he doesn't like nobody's allowed to like complain about that because yeah, no, that sucks. But like interesting though. So it's like it wasn't amazing. It wasn't perfect. He didn't have a picture perfect childhood. There was a point where he was lacking attention, but nothing to like an extreme level.
Right, exactly. Not like they were locking him in the basement and not feeding him. And all
Right.
that. Yeah.
Yeah.
But as we'll see in a little bit, this lack of attention in his mid-childhood might have led him to act out later on in life, which we'll look into in a bit.
Yeah.
Now, still, it's not a great point in life for lack of attention. But anyway, as the years rolled on, Joyce's psychological problems became more dominant in her life and more severe. She developed a bad case of both depression and illness anxiety disorder. And at some point, she even attempted suicide by overdose on, now I tried pronouncing this, it's meprobamate.
Yep.
Meprobamate, which is a minor tranquilizer. And then to put it into perspective for so people nowadays might think of, meprobamate is back then what benzos are now.
I see. Yeah. Okay. So yeah, that would fuck you up as a kid. That's okay. Now that's bad. That's no good.
That's no bueno, man. And it sucks because, like you said, back in the mid 60s, probably wasn't getting any help for this. So
right, totally. And to have like, being also that age when like your brain is like a sponge and seeing all this behavior, especially like, you learn from it. You replicate it. So that's okay. I'm starting to see some signs of the big bad.
The big bad. That's self-medication and all that bullshit.
Yep.
So due to Joyce's worsening mental condition, tensions were very high in the Dahmer household, which eventually led Joyce and Lionel to having constant arguments when they were together. So unfortunately, the happy child would soon change. Right before Jeffrey's 4th birthday, he had to go in a double hernia surgery, which took place in his scrotum area. Okay. He was, some sources say he was 4, some say he was 6. Regardless of the age, having a double hernia surgery in your groin is physically and probably mentally scarring.
Okay. What exactly is a hernia?
A hernia is basically a disruption in muscular wall somewhere around your intestines that allows your intestines to pop out through your wall and like push out towards the skin. It's like a tear or like a disruption. And so basically down by his groin, probably right above his crotch, he had 2 hernias, and his lower intestines were poking it through to his skin. And they had to like go in and fix it.
Yeah. Okay. So extremely traumatizing surgery experience. And then it's almost like the stuff that was going on at home was like fucking rough, but not something you can't work through. But like, dude, post-surgery will really like jack you up because that's and at 4 years old too, like, okay, like I'm starting to kind of see it come together.
And he was in a lot of pain before and after the surgery. So he had this, like, as a 4-year-old dude. So he had all this pain, and I don't know. Now, might be the Freudian coming out in me, all right? Because this is obviously not confirmed. But when the pain is, and you have surgery around your crotch area at such an important age in development, might lead to some weird sexual shit in the future. I don't know. I don't know.
I don't know if I'd buy that completely, but I don't know. That's up for debate.
That's a Freud thing. So, like, that's why it's definitely up for debates.
It's a Freud thing. You know it's a Freud thing because if you do a line of white lightning in the bathroom, it'll start to make a lot of sense real fast.
He's like, yeah, the crotch. Yeah. That makes a lot of sense. And this 4-year-old obviously knows what his crotch is.
It all fits together. So simple.
All right. So in his early elementary school days, one of his teachers not only noticed this change in temperament, but she also believed that she saw signs of abandonment issues. So basically what I'm trying to portray here or relay is the fact that after his surgery, his demeanor completely changed.
Right.
No longer a happy, energetic kid. Now he was quiet, reserved, timid, and his teachers definitely took notice. So given his mother's declining mental health, his father's absence, and their contentious relationship when they were together, it honestly doesn't surprise me that some abandonment problems began to arise in Jeffrey, especially at a crucial point in childhood socialization, when not only are you making friends, but your parents' relationships are still important to you, or
Right.
your parents' relationship with you. So it's all kind of coming together, right? It's like things were okay at first, and now there's just a bunch of fucking shit happening at once, and he's like 4 or 5 years old, you know?
Yeah, right at the age when like all that shit is like most like impactful.
It really sucks, man. Like I'm not trying to garner any sympathy for what he did, but it sucks.
Sounds to me like what as they were piecing it together, because obviously everyone probably listening to this episode at least knows a little bit about what Jeffrey Dahmer did, but sounds like this is like just one of those like 1 in a million. All it took was like one of these things to not happen, and he probably would have been fine, or at least not as bad as he was. But so kind of a perfect storm.
A perfect storm, and even more sad is there's a point that we're getting to soon, where it seems like he might be able to make a turnaround. But then something else happens and it's just fucking downhill from there. But we'll get there. It's very, very disheartening.
Damn.
From an early age, really not long after his double hernia surgery, Jeffrey began to develop an interest in dead animals. Now, that's why I said to keep a bookmark in that part where he loved animals when he was super young, and he loved hanging out with animals and helping them. So this particularly... his interest in dead animals and the parts that create them didn't come out of nowhere, though, as it is said that when he was 4 years old, again just after that surgery, he saw his father cleaning animal bones out from underneath the house, and he liked the sounds that the bones made when they would clank together. So he fixated on that. Yes, not a good sign.
So yeah, when you go to your community college and like one guy, like, you know, you're talking about, you know, you're in your like bio class, you're doing the dissections, and one of them was like, wow, like that's a really kind of cool sound. You're like, the bones? They're like, yeah, just kind of, that's kind of a, maybe delete his number if you have it.
That's right. You never want to see anybody playing Donkey Kongo with fucking bones during a dissection.
Not great.
Jeffrey liked it so much that Lionel said he was, quote, oddly thrilled, unquote, by the noises that the bones made. He was enamored by them. Problematic.
You think maybe he saw something at the hospital that maybe like flared this up, and like, because I feel like under immense pain, the brain has a weird way of processing things because you're like, you know, essentially in survival mode. So maybe he saw some like really fucked, because dude, there's some fucked up shit you could see at the hospital. Like, I don't know if it was with you or another time I was at the hospital for some reason or another, and a shooting victim got pulled in because it was like a drive-by, and you just saw it all.
Yeah, I mean, he might have, especially given a young child's imagination, filled in the gaps of things they don't know, and the immense pain, maybe even causing almost like hallucinatory shit. Maybe he saw something that was like, hey, there's a dancing skeleton over there, and I like the way his bones rattle, you know? And then when his dad dug up the bones, he's like, oh, that reminds me of that one time.
Oh yeah, or kind of like normalized it, like made it sound like, oh, like this is just something that everybody sees all the time because I'm just seeing this, and maybe everybody sees, and just kind of makes it not a big of a deal. I mean, this is all just kind of speculation, but like I can see that, you know, under the intense pain and trauma of going under surgery at such a young age and possibly seeing other, you know, gory situations, maybe that sort of like flipped a switch or set this thought process, like, you know, set it in motion or something.
Yeah, possibly, man. I mean, I wish we would know more about like that surgery because I couldn't find too much
Right.
on it. I'd be so interested to see, because back then also in the 60s, I imagine they didn't have the best privacy protocols in the hospital. So maybe he
Right.
just saw some shit out in the open that was like not meant to be seen.
It's possible.
So this fascination with bones went on through Jeffrey's childhood, and he would often look underneath the house for more animal bones to collect and observe. Again, imitating his father's behavior in the hopes that he'd find the same shit.
Oh yeah, following the dopamine.
Yeah, buddy, follow that dragon. Dahmer was also known to capture live animals and feel around their bodies in order to feel out where different bones were located in them.
Oh, that made me physically shudder.
I mean, I do that to Kiwi, but I'm not going to kill him later, There's a difference.
Plus, he's like 50% pudge. I'm sure it's like a massage to him.
It's more of a scientific discovery for me because, like you said, he's 50% fudge. I have no idea where his bones are.
You had to confirm they're even there.
Yeah, I want to make sure he wasn't a noodle situation.
Just checking, just looking out for Kiwi.
Is this a bone day? Yeah, I guess. There was one incident in which Jeffrey cut the head off of a dog's carcass, nailing the body to a tree, and then putting the head on a spike, Vlad Tepes style.
Oh, okay. That's quite a leap.
Although I have to say, I'm getting ahead of myself. I'm just giving examples about his change in his attitudes towards animals. So we'll continue to talk about his timeline, but we will be catching up on that more morbid animal curiosity in a little bit. But sorry, continue.
Okay, so that was kind of like a lead up to that. He didn't just like touch an animal to feel bones and I'm gonna kill a dog.
I'm gonna cut this head off and see you. Yeah.
Did I tell you that like it was like a year or two ago how in town there was a they found a beheaded dog?
No?
Like not like killed by an animal, like head was cut off. Like a person had to have done it. And like it was this weird, eerie like vibe for like a little while.
How far from your house?
I would say maybe like 10 miles.
Was I in town when that happened, or was that after I left?
You might have been in town when that happened. It was a while ago. It's kind of hard to say, but like it never happened again, which is nice. Or just, the the papers tried to cover it up because, they're weird about that kind of stuff. But yeah, I remember it was just like the only thing I thought it was just like shit. Like that's already happening to dogs. Like we might get our first serial killer. Like, oh no.
Yeah. Weird how it happened when I was there and it didn't happen after I left, huh?
It's almost like there's some, like a dot that can be connected or something.
Nah, man, I like doggies. I wouldn't do that.
Yeah, well, you have a dog.
Not for long.
Yeah. Make sure you FaceTime that dog to me every single. I need to fucking confirm that.
In October of 1966, when Jeffrey was 6 years old, he and his family moved to Doylestown, Ohio. And now once in Ohio, he began elementary school, attending first grade. Not long after, in December of that year, Joyce gave birth to another child. And so somewhere in the midst of their arguments and drug-fueled depression and suicide attempts, they found time to have sex because she gave birth to another baby boy, and Jeffrey was allowed to choose the name of the baby.
Oh.
And he went with David, which is cute.
Okay.
And as if Lionel and Joyce's lack of attention to Jeffrey wasn't bad enough already, having a new baby led him to feel even more neglected in his day-to-day life.
And what's crazy to me about this whole thing, it's like, and I know this is like a thing that happens a lot in decision-making processes, is like, oh, like we're super stressed, everything's going bad. What better way to deal with it than taking on a brand new responsibility of a new child?
Yeah, isn't it weird how that happens? And my theory is it's just because people have brutal, awesome makeup sex, and then they just like kind of oops,
Bummer.
And then being in the 60s, it's not like you could go down to like the Planned Parenthood and get an abortion, So
yeah, not something that was super accessible.
Hangers were accessible though.
Oh God, and also could kill you.
Yeah,
most of the time they did.
Yeah.
Oh,
okay, that was a bad joke. I bet everybody in Texas just clicked off. You know what I mean?
Yeah, probably.
So, also around this same time, the fights between his parents escalated, which naturally happens. There's more tension in the household, even with a healthy couple when they have a baby, let alone if they were already at each other's throats before the new baby. So, Eventually, what happened was Joyce and Lionel began sleeping in separate rooms. And this is the beginning of the official downfall of their marriage.
I see.
Then the following year, the Dahmers moved to a new house, still in Ohio, still in that relative city, I believe. And Jeffrey met a friend named Lee. Now, he and Lee got fairly close over a period of a few months, but just as hope was surfacing for some normal socialization, it fell apart. Essentially, what happened, the long and short of it, was that Jeffrey grew fond of one of his teachers. So, as a gift, he gave her a bowl full of tadpoles, which he found and caught himself. Unfortunately, he later found out that the teacher had given that bowl of tadpoles to Lee. And I think he was taken aback by this and kind of felt betrayed. So when he discovered that Lee was given the tadpoles he gave to his teacher, Jeffrey killed the tadpoles by pouring motor oil in the bowl.
Is this before or after the dog?
This is before the dog. This is when he was still a little younger.
Got you. Okay.
Then a year later, in 1968, when Dahmer was 8 years old, the family moved yet again. This time, they found themselves still in Ohio, but this time they moved to a town called Bath, B-A-T-H.
Sounds clean.
Sounds like a clean place to live, man. I'm saying if you're going to move anywhere in Ohio, the stinkiest state there is, Bath's probably the place to go.
Right.
And Jeffrey had to start at a new elementary school. That's never easy on a kid. And I should know, dude, I've been to like 3 elementary schools. It fucking sucked.
Yeah, moving a lot. It's just 'cause especially like, you know, you want to have like a group of friends that you want to like move with or like, you know, hang out with, and to start over while you're still kind of figuring out how to make friends and stuff. Like that's no good.
It's never good, man. Now, it was in this year as well that something important happened in the Jeffrey Dahmer saga. He got a chemistry set as a gift from his father.
Yeah, those savvy ones out there will be like, their eyebrows just raised.
That's right. Now, he used this chemistry set in a number of experiments involving animals. And I use the word experiment pretty loosely because there was no hypothesis he was testing. It was just kind of, well, I guess maybe. Anyway, that's like in a really morbid way. He was like, I wonder what happens if we'll get into it. So,
yeah.
So this was around the time we mentioned earlier when we got ahead of ourselves that he was beginning to take a very morbid look at animals.
Right.
He would capture insects, keep them in jars. Yeah, he really liked the bigger insects like butterflies and all that. He would also kill insects and keep them in formaldehyde in jars as well. And of course, who could forget that story we talked about earlier of beheading and impaling the carcass of a dog?
Yeah, which is a huge emphasis on huge deal when you're killing like pet animals like dogs and cats. That is like red sirens. We need to fucking take care of this person right now, because that is, as most true crime people I'm sure know, is like the next step is humans. That's just the way it goes historically.
Yeah, exactly. And that's just, so it's never good. If you're a younger sibling, or if your son or your daughter or anybody you know that's young find some joy in killing animals, not even cats and dogs, like domesticated ones, but like anything, if they're doing it not for hunting purposes, but just to kind of do it, get them somewhere, you know what I mean? Because that's not good.
Don't write that off. Like there's just some things that it's like feeling a bump on your testicle. Like, don't write that off. Like that's something, it's easy to be like, it's probably not a huge deal, but it is.
It is. And I have a bump on my testicle, but I wrote it off for so long. I just kind of have 3 testicles now. So it's kind of cool.
Oh yeah. The bump actually grew into the 3rd testicle, and it works too.
Yeah. I'm extra potent now.
Good for you.
Another incident took place when he went out fishing with some of his boyhood friends. He caught a fish and began methodically but slowly cutting it up, curious to see how the insides looked and how they worked. And I imagine his friends were just kind of standing there like scratching their heads, you know?
Yeah. I don't know if I told the story on the podcast yet, but did I ever tell you that one of my old neighbors in the neighborhood I grew up with, we found like a small like den of like rats and stuff, and he just like took a shovel and just started wailing, like tearing them apart.
What's he doing now?
I don't know. I did not keep in touch.
That's a smart move. I think the worst thing I've ever done was there was a dead rat so he was already dead. I didn't kill it, but there was a dead rat in my jacuzzi when I was like a teenager, and my mom was like, "Hey, get it out with a shovel." So I got it out with a shovel, but instead of like dumping it in the trash can, my next thought was to like throw it against the wall as hard as I could, and I did.
Oh no!
But he was already dead, so it's like,
yeah,
boys will be boys,
Yeah, that could have been worse. The 90s were a little bit different. Like that was
that was like the mid 2000s, I think. So like I was just kind of letting some aggression out. But he was already dead, so I have to reiterate, I've never killed an animal,
right? Just
to kill an animal.
Yeah. Well, and also too, if we're looking at the source, like you've always kind of been like edgy in that sense, and that kind of sounds like, you as you're coming to terms with your edginess, something that you would probably do.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah. Long story short, though, animal mutilation. It's like, because I look back at like my experience, and like that's fucking like that was traumatizing. Like I was like really quiet for the rest of the day after that. I was like, kind of wish I didn't see that.
Yeah, dude, that's messed up.
Yeah, because they were alive. That's what made it worse. Ugh.
The whole family, huh?
Yep.
How you feel, man? You good? Stop thinking about it. Stop thinking about it.
What? Let's talk about more dead animals to make me forget about the dead animals.
Perfect, man. Yeah. Okay, so for the next couple of years of Jeffrey's childhood, the animal mutilation and fascination continued. All right, it didn't stop.
Right.
He would collect roadkill and cut up the carcasses in order to separate the parts into pieces and put them in respective jars. He was very into like keeping them, cutting them up and keeping them into different parts.
And if you're not a mad scientist billionaire, that's weird.
Yeah. Oh, yeah, exactly. Dahmer would also use, and now this is where that chemistry set comes in. He would use acid to dissolve all of the flesh off the bones once he like cut the flesh off the bones and of the animals, and then bleach them. Still as obsessed with bones and the inner workings of the animals' bodies as ever. And he would just collect the bones.
Okay, so we're kind of, and he just got away with all this stuff. Like nobody ever kind of like figured it out.
No, I don't think so, because he didn't really hang with friends a lot, so nobody really knew about it except for that one time. Well, sometimes he would go out with friends in the fish thing, and then also sometimes he would go with friends to find like roadkill. But I don't think they were with him when he would like be like, "Okay, see you guys," like, and then he would go to the tool shed and cut them up. I don't think they were with him at that point.
Okay,
he would
so
hide
most of the
parents.
Got you. So he pretty much got away with most of this.
Yeah.
Ugh.
So this type of animal, and also we have to remember he's not getting a lot of attention at home, so it's not like his parents are really even going to notice like his weird behavior,
You're right. That was like a thing.
So this type of animal mutilation behavior goes on for another couple years. Then, at the age of 12, Jeffrey gets his first job at a nursery, and his boss at this nursery said that Dahmer was quite enthusiastic and willing to do the work. And this is what I was talking about earlier. In my opinion, this was a good sign. Perhaps he could still begin puberty in a normal manner and grow out of his obsession with dead things, right? This seemed like a turning point where his old personality was coming back a little bit. When he hit 12, he was starting to be more enthusiastic about bettering himself and doing good at this job.
Wasn't stewing in the darkness, and now he finally had something to do.
He had something to do, something he could feel good about. And unfortunately, this was not the path that life had in store for Jeffrey. It's because about a year later, when he was 13, Dahmer began drinking alcohol. And well, technically in Wisconsin, this is pretty late, but I'm just kidding.
Yeah, that's not a great time to start drinking.
No. And honestly, this is really when the downward spiral began. So as we will find out later in a bit more detail, and by later, I mean in the next episode, Jeffrey was actually diagnosed with a few pretty serious mental disorders and a substance abuse disorder so early on in life, especially at such a crucial developmental stage, may have acted as an environmental stressor that put him past that threshold I was talking about earlier, for his upcoming disorder expressions. But that's just me speculating, but it's an idea that makes sense in my head.
Right.
And I think that that's another reason why this alcohol drinking at such an early age was not good for him genetically.
Oh,
not
yeah.
good.
Well, alcohol is just not good for you in general. And usually it just sort of kind of like perpetuates like a lot of stuff like that you already, because I remember like kind of talk about this with like the difference between like weed and alcohol, where weed kind of brings you to like a more like chill zone, whereas alcohol more or less like doubles the emotion that you're feeling at the time. So if like you're at a party, you're having fun, and like the vibe is like, you know, you're there to have a good time, alcohol makes you feel double happy. If you're drinking because you're really sad, guess what? Now you feel double sad. And that's kind of like, so whatever Dahmer was going through, and also keeping in mind the fact that he was a child, basically 13. Oh, he's a teenager. You're a fucking kid still. Doing any sort of like illicit substance like before you're like developed is super like, well, like we were talking about, like maybe there was a chance of him turning it around. But I think with the drinking, that also when you're developing stunts developmental growth. So that chance that he might have had of possibly quote unquote growing out of it, I think he just completely tossed it away with this.
Yeah, it's not good. He, as we'll see as we go along, it wasn't just like having a cold one with the boys, you know. It was bad. So yeah, very much could have been the case, man. It's unfortunate because it seemed like, I think if he didn't pick up drinking, I honestly think there may have been a chance for him.
I think so too. I actually absolutely think so too, because I mean, it's a little bit of a spoiler, but the level of drinking that he was doing was like, woo. Yeah, we'll get into it. We'll get into it.
But by the age of 14, Dahmer began attending high school, and along with that, his alcohol consumption increased significantly. Like he would like, and we'll get into it in a little bit, but a lot. So it was at this point that he even began drinking throughout the daytime, not just at night.
Ugh.
So it was here's an example. He would straight up take alcohol to school in a flask. Okay. And when a classmate asked about why he was drinking scotch at school, one of the few classmates who caught on, Jeffrey referred to it as his quote medicine, unquote. He was drinking a lot at school.
Was his like theory on this of, well, I can't get hungover if I don't get sober?
Damn straight, man. You can't have a hangover if you never stop drinking, buddy.
Oh God, but he took it quite literally. And at that age, even in Wisconsin, that's kind of frowned upon at that age.
Yeah, dude. Even Wisconsinites were like, I don't know, buddy. That seems like a lot of scotch. Why don't you have a brewing class, you know?
That sounds like more of a Russian thing.
I don't know, dude. Russians? Look,
no,
man.
I mean like not the accent. I mean like literally Russians, like beer was for like years not even considered to be an alcoholic beverage.
That's true, but that's because Russia is a backward. Oh, I can't say that, dude, because like Putin's gonna get me by the balls. But despite all of this, Jeffrey actually did fairly well academically his first year of high school and was a great tennis player on the school team. He even was in the marching band for a little bit and did well in that. So first year, despite the alcoholism, he was trying.
Yeah.
You know?
Okay. Respectable effort.
Yeah. Respectable effort just for the first year.
Yeah.
Even worse, though, puberty began to hit him full force, as it does all of us. But due to his developing mental issues and his obsession with the body and the inside of the bodies, it wasn't like a normal puberty, as you could imagine.
Ooh.
First, he discovered that he was gay through a brief, non-sexual relationship with a classmate. I'm not saying that's not normal, okay? I guess I preceded that with a non-normal puberty. It's fine if you're gay.
Right. Well, we also got to point out this was the 60s, too, where that was also a bit of a... When did the AIDS pandemic start? Because I know that's when a lot of like anti-gay stuff happened.
The late 80s.
Okay, so that was before all that. Still not something that back then, because nowadays, if you realize that you're gay or you come out to yourself or you have a moment where it clicks with you, that's like a, for hopefully most people, that's a like, cool. I know who I am. I have my sense of identity. Great. Back then, that was a like, oh shit, I'm gay. Like my life is going to be a fucking uphill battle from this point onward. Well, I don't know. Actually, I don't know if that's like, how did he react to this?
So he didn't tell anybody. Like, he didn't tell his family. Obviously, you don't do that back in the day.
Yeah.
But he didn't necessarily. I think that he still didn't like it because of the social norms at the time, and I
Right.
think so. He of course drank more because of it. Like,
Oh,
you would
no.
often drink to hide your feelings and to kind of like self medicate. So, but he still had these fantasies in his head, and I'll show you how these fantasies evolved
Okay.
during puberty. So, from finding out he was gay, his fantasies begin to turn dominant. So he wanted to dominate and control a submissive male partner sexually.
Okay. So kind of what I'm grabbing from this is him being gay is kind of besides the point. I think he was just puberty was kicking in. He just happened to be into guys. But either way, I think his fantasies would have been the same of dominant power player. Like, I like control.
Right, exactly. I think the gay thing is totally irrelevant. It is obviously irrelevant. Like, it has nothing to do with why he did what he did.
Okay, because I wasn't sure if it was like him coming out as gay to himself was the thing that was like, fuck, like now my entire lifestyle has to change. But it sounds like he was actually fairly unaffected by that.
I'm not. Yeah, I feel like he didn't like it because he felt like he shouldn't like it. Like we said, because of the times, but he still accepted it and went on with his fantasies. It wasn't a huge thing, but I think he still drank to cope with it a little bit.
I see. Okay, so it was a part of it, but it wasn't a huge part of it.
Right. Now, eventually, this specific fantasy of being dominant began to focus on smooth, hairless chests and torsos of his want-to-be or to-be sexual partners. He really kind of started fixating on that portion of the body specifically. Why? I'm not sure. But he did. And I don't know if it has to do with how he would always like segment and dissect animals when he was younger and he wanted to feel the bones around the torso. I don't know if that translated to this. I don't know, but something
Can't
about the
control your taste.
Hey man. Hey, I'm not here to kink shame. All right.
Yeah, I mean, everyone has their own deal and the things that they enjoy. And unfortunately for him, this sort of becomes the profile for victims, as we'll come to find.
Yeah. Then, unfortunately, his fantasy crossed the line, and Jeffrey began to include dissection and violence into his fantasies.
Also not a great sign.
Not a good sign. That was the tipping point here. Now, it seems that up until this point, he was fantasizing about the scenario more than the specific person. This would change at the age of 16, though. Now, see, there was a male jogger who would often run by his home on a trail, and Dahmer found him to be attractive. He had that chest that he liked, smooth, hairless, all that weird, good stuff,
Yeah.
Now, due to his pretty, at this point, concrete, violent fantasies, after a while, Jeffrey decided he couldn't take it anymore and actually waited in the bushes by the path where the jogger normally ran past. And he wanted to kill the jogger and use his body for sexual purposes afterwards. So at this point in his life, also his fantasies included necrophilia.
Oh, wow.
Fortunately, this was one of the only days that the jogger did not run by his area, hence saving his life.
Yeah. Well, and what's crazy to me is thinking about this is like constantly being plastered drunk and then just reminiscing about all that stuff. Not only is that like a weird headspace to be in, but I also got to point out that I feel like being constantly drunk sort of blurs the idea of reality because you're never sober or you're sober so little that it's like you almost kind of forget what you actually are because you're just in this like different like
you're in like a dissociative stage the whole time.
Yeah, altered state of mind. And I could see how doing that because he isn't just doing that once a week. He's been doing this since he's fucking 13 and he's now 16 with all these dark thoughts already. And like I said, just stewing in the booze. And I think it's distorting reality to that point where he's already killed animals before as I think sober. So now all that stuff, it's like now projecting it onto humans is just sort of, it's becoming less and less like the barrier. He's bringing down his own barriers on like not becoming a fucking serial killer.
Right, man. It's a whole soup, bro. It's just one thing after the other. And it just never, it's like full throttle at this point,
Yeah. So yeah, like you were saying, sounds like full dissociation. Like he's just living in fantasy right now, and like it's just nothing's real anymore.
And this was the first time that Dahmer admitted to wanting his fantasies to become reality, where he actually planned on attacking somebody to turn his fantasies into reality at the age of 16.
Ooh, yeah. What were you doing at the age of 16?
Not this, bro. I was not
Yeah.
doing this.
Yeah, pretty sure I was. What was I doing? I was just like,
We were just doing hood rat shit, but we were doing
Yeah.
like normal teenage hood rat shit. Not, I wasn't hanging out in the bike path waiting for some hottie to run by so I could, you know.
Yeah, I think we were just like hopping fences to hang out in the pool after hours, or just like climbing buildings and hanging out, and just because we could.
Yeah, exactly, man. So yikes, that's an early ass age, man. It's even for serial killers. That's an early
Yeah.
age to get started. So
Damn, that's sad.
now at the age of 17, his drinking only began to get worse. And at this point, Dahmer had solidified his position as class clown in school. And there's two things, in my opinion, that added to this. One was his lack of attention as a child. And two was, of course, the alcohol. Like when you're drinking, of course, you're going to be fucking telling racist jokes and doing a Dahmer, as we'll see, you know?
Yeah, a bit loopy. Well, and it's like, I mean, this meme was kind of popular for a while, where it's just like the quiet kid. I mean, the class clown when he goes home, and it's these like, you know, Simpsons raining, like sad, like
It's true.
yeah. Because it's a way of because there's the thing is like positive attention and negative attention, where you get the troublemakers who act out and get in trouble all the time because it's attention is attention. But then you get this other form of it where they're really depressed and really upset, but they found out that they can sort of like get their bump by making other people laugh and getting that positive attention. And that becomes sort of your position in the social sphere, and it works for you.
Right, exactly, man. It's sad. It's really sad.
Yeah. Also, too, you can say really dark shit and no one will take you seriously.
Because they're like, oh, he's just joking. Oh, he wants to kill somebody. Oh, what a jokester. This guy's such a jokester.
What a funny guy, huh?
So he was a class clown at this point, and in fact, I put the words pranks and jokes in quotations. His pranks and jokes were so well known that kids would often refer to his antics as, quote, doing a Dahmer, unquote.
Now, if it wasn't for the fact he's a serial killer and shit like that, that's a crowning achievement to have when something funny happens, to have your name named after it.
Right, exactly. And some of these pranks included pretending to have a seizure or pretending to have cerebral palsy. So he would be like,
Oh, no.
or he'd like pretend to be like cerebral palsy, which is like you know.
Oh wow, you're a little too good at that. It's like almost like you used to do that or something.
It's only because I am true to my craft, and I have to be sure how to make fun of people with CP.
Good for you. But yes, 60s was a different time. Humor was a little bit different.
It was different for sure.
Yeah, not too much different. I'd say more there was a more broader range of what was acceptable, because like, you know, you can make fun of anybody who's differently abled, but as long as it's not in a public sphere, it's fine and it's funny. But if we're in a group of more than 4, then you basically look like fucking the Antichrist.
Yeah. Which is unfortunate.
That's the times right now.
Now, of course, at this point, his grades and performance in school were really hurting. Okay, so he really only did well in his first year of high school. The rest was just a pretty gradual decline.
Yeah, which is a shame, because it sounds like he would have been fine if it wasn't for the drinking,
right,
and the whole like wanting to kill people. But like, yeah, he was doing well. That's a shame.
Yeah. Now, another major problem was the fact that Lionel and Joyce were still constantly fighting, and they decided to attend marriage counseling sessions. There could have been hope, but Lionel found out that the same year that they started counseling, a few months earlier, Joyce had an affair.
Ugh. Just one after the other, and they all happen at like the most pivotal time they could happen.
Yes, and of course this was it for their marriage, and a divorce ensued. And not to be judgy or anything, but who the fuck would hook up with Joyce? No offense or anything, I'm just saying that's pretty Lionel must have really sucked in the sack, man.
Yeah, you would be so surprised. Like the people that are getting some. Like it's an odd world out there.
So Lionel, of course, after this whole thing happened, he moved out of the house, and as soon as Dahmer graduated high school in 1978, Joyce was awarded custody of David, Jeffrey's younger brother, which is a fucking terrible move in my opinion. Back then, of course, the courts would prefer, and even to this day, the courts prefer have preference to women to get custody over men, even if circumstances say otherwise. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So at this point, and I didn't put it in the outline, but I know at this point Joyce's issues, her mental issues, and her substance abuse was rampant. Yet she still got custody.
Yeah. Oh, and this isn't even just the product of the 60s, 70s. This is just a fucking justice system. Like it's not much better.
It's not. It's really not. And it's unfortunate because a lot of the times children will go with mothers who use them either to spite the father who actually cares for these kids. And they do it solely because, and they ignore evidence, and they do it solely because society thinks that mothers are naturally more nurturing, which is true in most cases, but not when you don't want your kids and you're using them as like a tool. So.
Yeah, and hopefully there's been enough, and I mean, how sad that this is the case, but hopefully there's been enough of these cases where now they're trying to be a little bit more objective about it, because there have been cases where children have died because the mother, like, didn't give a fuck about the kid, like you said, just wanted custody just to spite the husband, and children have died over this kind of stuff.
Yep. Yes, sir.
Shit.
But Joyce and David moved in with family. They went back to Wisconsin in Chippewa Falls. Jeffrey stayed at the family house in Ohio, where he basically had free, unsupervised reign and a growing desire to kill men that he was attracted to.
The fact that they just left him alone, because if they just paid attention to him, like, the dude is wasted 24/7, like, that's pretty noticeable. Like, that's, you could tell when people are doing that. So that just is super telling about the level of neglect. And now that he's just on his own, as we'll come to find out, he now is given a space to do what he needs to do.
Yeah, so not great. Not a good combination, okay? So that was our background on Jeffrey Dahmer and his tumultuous upbringing, but it's time that we introduce you all to his first successful murder. And I say successful because we cannot forget the jogger who luckily did not show up that day 2 years earlier. So we are only fast forwarding 3 weeks after his graduation and after the family moved out of the house. 3 weeks is as long as he could wait.
Yep. Shit. Not long at all.
On June 18th, 1978, Jeffrey was driving down the road when he saw a hitchhiker named Stephen Mark Hicks looking for a ride. Hicks was also 18, almost 19, same age as Jeffrey. After picking up Hicks, Dahmer offered him alcohol. You know, he was like, hey, man, why don't we go back to my place? I got some brews waiting for it, maybe some brats. You know, I could throw them on the grill. It'll be fucking fantastic, you know?
Yeah, which just sucks because, you know, because nowadays, dude, hitchhiking, like, why would you do that? You're just asking to get killed. Nobody does this shit anymore. But back then, that was like a cool, normal thing. And then on top of that, they're offering you a brewski. Like, fuck yeah.
Yeah, dude. And it was definitely a product of his time because Hicks was hitchhiking to get to a rock concert. That's just kind of what you did back then. You're like, hey, man, I'm going to this fucking concert up the road, broken. You know, it's just like one of those things. Yeah. But, you know, even though we had a concert to get to, Hicks was like, hell yeah, alcohol sounds good. Let's stop by your pad first, right?
Right. And they were underage, too. So also a score, because back then, you know, you wanted to get alcohol whenever you could at that age, especially going to a concert.
Fuck yeah.
You can't do it legally. So you got an easy in. And this is back in those days when human kindness was a reliable commodity.
Exactly. So he's like, oh, this Jeffrey guy doesn't look too intimidating. Let's go get some alcohol with him. So, you know, they head back to Jeffrey's now secluded household. So what initially caught Dahmer's eye about Hicks was that he wasn't wearing a shirt. And of course, he had a smooth, hairless chest and torso, which at this point, as we know, was Dahmer's fetish and junk.
Yeah.
Now, he wanted to have sex with Hicks, But I think what he wanted to do was he wanted to have consensual sex with Hicks, but Hicks started talking about girls, so Dahmer was like, damn, he's not gay, but he knew there was no chance consensually.
So at this point, is it assumed that he's like fucked up drunk?
Yes. At basically any point in the story, and just imagine him being drunk, because that's usually what his day was like.
Damn. And that's almost what's scary about it, is because like when somebody's like blackout, like they're the most like non-threatening. They're just like, this fucking dude's wasted and he's offering me something to drink. Like, that's funny. Like, cool. But,
yeah, man.
But
he wasn't gay, So hours and hours went by at Jeffrey's house, and they were having a good time. They were drinking, talking, listening to music, having a good old time. But eventually Hicks was like, yo, I got to get to that concert, man. So he needs to take off. But Dahmer, of course, did not want him to leave. So when Hicks wasn't looking, as he was getting out of his chair to leave, Jeffrey came up behind him and smashed him in the head with a 10-pound dumbbell 2 times. Pretty hard, because at this point, Jeffrey had been working out a little bit, and he was getting a little bit bigger, a little bit stronger.
Oh.
Hicks was unconscious, and Dahmer used the handle of the dumbbell to strangle Hicks to death, most likely crushing his throat as well. Jeffrey then removed Hicks' clothing, rubbing his hands all over his smooth chest and torso, taking it in. And this is what he had been waiting for. He stood up over the corpse and jerked off on top of it. The next day, Dahmer dissected Hicks's body down in his basement and then buried the remains in his backyard. The next few weeks, he waited, and then he dug up the remains and sliced all of the remaining flesh from the bones. Dahmer then used acid to dissolve the flesh and poured it down the toilet, only leaving the bones left. And finally, he crushed the bones with a sledgehammer, took the pieces out to the woods behind his house, and scattered them all about. And this was Jeffrey's first murder, and it happened at the very young age of 18 years old.
That's frighteningly thorough.
Yes, it's like he'd thought about it before.
Yeah, it's almost like he was like fantasizing about what he would do for the past 3-4 fucking years. Jeez, yeah, it never ceases to like shock me into silence, to always like remember that this was a real person that was just like out for a fun time and just was trusted the wrong person, and it can happen as easy as that.
Yeah, man, got to be really careful who you hang out with, who you meet, and who you spend your time with. It's very scary, man, because I'm sure besides the fact that Jeffrey was drunk, he probably seemed like a pretty approachable dude, like most serial killers do,
Yeah, seemed fine.
It's just unfortunately you take that superficial charm and mix it with a little bit of trust, and boom, you're dead. So
yeah, and it's crazy because nowadays, like, nobody trusts fucking anybody ever, and if you do, I mean, hopefully you don't end up in a bad situation. Like, it's just, and especially with Corona now that like everyone's been like stuck inside, it's even like more so that people don't trust, and that's half the. And I mean, I think it's up for debate of that's why spree killing is more of a thing than serial killing, because nobody trusts anybody anymore. Everyone has cameras. Everyone has like ways to catch you, or they're fighting back. People are more trained for the situations now. It's just, whereas back then when human kindness was just like a big ass opening, people decided to take advantage of it and ruin the fucking one thing that like helped keep society like humane. And like, well, not that it was ever really that humane, but like, hey, at least, if you could trust a stranger, like at least a little bit. But nowadays it's like, it's sad where even if somebody looks like legitimately they could use help, there's a point where it's just like, or that could be bait, or like that could be, I don't know. It's like they say, if a really attractive girl suddenly comes out of nowhere and starts like, oh, you need to come with me, like really, like, oh yeah, I could, and then get stabbed by 5 dudes waiting around the other corner. Like, and it's so fucking fucked up but it's people like fucking Dahmer that got us to this point.
Yeah, it's scary. I was reading a green text thread on 4chan about people who, it's like a very specific thing, but I guess it's prevalent in some countries where you will be driving down like a highway or something, especially like a secluded one, and you'll see like a quote unquote car crash where like a car's off to the side of the road and somebody's like lying in the street.
Oh,
And, you know, most people are smart enough to be like, okay, I'll like call the authorities or an ambulance or something and drive away slowly so they can get details. But then when they look back, the person who was on the floor is like standing up, like looking at the car, and people are like coming out of the trees or the bushes next to the road. So it was like obviously a setup. Like that's kind of shit. You can't trust anybody. Our initial reaction is to help each other, but in this day and age, it's really, really fucking hard to do that because of the things that like Jeffrey did and and all these things that we have seen in the past and we're learning from. We're like, okay, we're a little too cautious now, but it's still you have to be.
Well, and on top of that too, like, I mean, cough, half the reason we're doing a true crime episode is because true crime is extremely popular. Like a lot of people read up and like there's so much information about this stuff out nowadays. Like a lot of people, like they're a little bit more savvy to it. And because they realize it is that easy to just get fucking murdered, you know, you're just gonna, hey, I could help this dude and be a good Samaritan, or maybe not risk the fact that I might get killed. And it's just a sad reality we live in. And like how crazy that it's just because of just a couple fuckers doing shit like that. And here we are.
Yeah, man. Quite scary, but that was it for part 1 of Jeffrey Dahmer, the Milwaukee cannibal. Next episode, when we cover part 2, that's when we're going to get into his major, all of the different things that you guys have heard about. We're going to get into all of it. It's grueling. There's a lot of brutal stuff in there.
It's gonna get so much worse. Oh boy. Today was just the appetizer, if that. I'd say this is actually more of just like the water you get before the appetizer.
Damn straight. So you got your water with the background. You got a little bit of bread, some complimentary bread with that first murder, and then next Jeffrey Dahmer episode is just going to be a fucking 4-course meal. And I don't mean that because he was a cannibal. That was just an unintentional play on words.
Yes. But as you know, this is our Halloween episode. We are going to continue, of course, to give you the juicy bits. We wish we could give you like the more gory stuff on Halloween, but just didn't quite work out that way. But hopefully it's something to look forward to. And please be safe. Please, like, you know, I know this fucking virus is still rapidly what's the word for it? It's everywhere.
It's everywhere. It's mutating. It's spreading. It's doing what viruses do. It's wiping out the weak. You know, let it do its thing.
So be careful. You know, not a bad time to wear a mask for Halloween, one could say. But, you know, be safe. Get a ride. A lot of stupid people out there. A lot of people driving wasted. A lot of crazy people not used to being out in public that are out in public. Like, you know, just be careful. And, you know, if you want to lose some friends, go ahead and play this podcast episode at your party.
Yeah, or play one of our more offensive ones. I don't give a shit. Let them know what we think about the world.
Oh yeah, but sincerely, happy Halloween from us at Close Encounters. Hope it's a good one. Hope it's spooky and hope it's enjoyable.
Happy Halloween! It's my favorite holiday. I'm gonna be wasted.
Oh yeah, and probably the same. No, I can't actually because I have to help my girlfriend move. Oh no, we're moving on Halloween, so maybe right afterwards. Maybe we'll figure it out.
Oh, you'll get drunk. You will get drunk, sir.
There's a will, there's a way. But also remember, everyone's in costume. Count Chocula, like we warn everybody every single year, is out there, and he is undetectable.
Undetectable. So stay safe out there. We just talked about being safe around strangers. Be extra cautious around strangers on Halloween because you don't know where Count Chocula could be at any given point. Absolutely. And there's some, I mean, it's debatable, but some wonder, how did Jeffrey get a hold of all this alcohol? And, you know, I'm just saying. That's a good point. I mean, the 60s and the 70s, 70s in particular, probably easier now than than to get alcohol, but still difficult underage. So I'm wondering if fucking Chocula over here knew that would be the turning point and fueled him.
It's very possible. I mean, yeah, I had like underage roommates before that would like, oh, he just like swipe bottles and stuff at like the place he worked at and stuff. Like there's ways, but sometimes you just need a little bit of extra help, which is no bueno in some cases.
Hey, I don't speak Spanish. Sorry, buddy. I don't know what that means.
Google it. If you're listening on iTunes, you can 5-star rate and review. That would be really helpful. Spotify, you can click the follow button. We do have new episodes every single Wednesday. Our Instagram is at CEOTPK. YouTube is Close Encounters of the Podcast Kind. Our Twitter is at CEOTPK1. You can check out our TikTok at CEOTPK. Facebook is Close Encounters of the Podcast Kind, where you'll find all these links and any link you might ever need from us. Our email is CEOTPK1@gmail.com. Join our Discord at discord.gg/lowercase b, number 6, capital T's, capital. Fuck. Go to the Facebook.
What are you doing, a
there.
Dahmer? You pretending like you got dyslexia now or what?
I needed at least 4 more stutters before it could be officially considered a Dahmer. So, almost. Coffee is ko-fi.com/CEOTPK if you feel the need to donate. Not essential. Honestly, we just prefer you just listen to our episodes. That makes us feel better more than anything, but the link is there if you so decide.
Yeah, guys, we do appreciate it when you donate, but trick or treat, guess what? You listening is a treat in itself.
Oh, how cute.
Look, whether you think that Jeffrey Dahmer had a chance or whether you think he was ill-fated at birth, the truth is out there.
Yeah, well, kind of hard to say because we actually are talking about the truth. So, like, is it not?
Yeah, I might have to watch The Kids tonight.
Have fun, man. I thought you weren't allowed within like 12 feet.
Me too. Well, whatever. I guess they're desperate.
That must be really desperate. Jesus Christ.
I don't want to, but